Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. Of course, I'm Kate Dillon, and I am here today with my friend Melinda Russell. And Melinda, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm a mother of, I had 4 children and I have 14 grandchildren, and those are the pride of my life, my 14 grandchildren. And I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan part of the year, and I live in Surprise, Arizona, the other part. And I'll let you guess which part I live in when. That's not hard to figure out. 2 of my daughters live in Arizona, and I have 6 grandchildren there. So they're split. My grandchildren are split all over the place. So we get the best of both worlds. We get to be in Michigan in the summer when my 2 granddaughters are racing. They're 18 and 16. And then I'm in the winter, I'm out where all the little ones are. So we have a great life, actually, my husband and I. And I founded the International Women's Motorsports Association in 2017. I was looking to connect with other women involved in motorsports. I Googled everything I could think of to try to find a group that was already formed. And believe it or not, Facebook didn't even have anything, which I couldn't hardly believe. And so my family encouraged me to start something and see if there was any interest. So on a Sunday night, I put a post on Facebook that I was starting an organization or an association to connect and celebrate women in motorsports. And if you were interested, you should tag yourself in the feed. And by the time I went to bed that night, I had over 100 names. And by the next night, I had over 200 names. And now we're up to almost 9,000 followers. I haven't really worked at getting more followers. Those have been people that refer people that refer people. So they're the real deal. They're not any of those people that you buy their names or whatever. And so I love that I have that many people that are really interested, and a lot of men. It's not just women. There's a lot of men that, support their wife who drives, or she's the crew chief or whatever it might be. And they're like, the women don't get enough credit for what they do in front of this, as the driver or behind the scenes. And so we, I like to tell stories. So I have a digital magazine all about women in motorsports, and I do a podcast called Racing Girls Rock. And I just love meeting all these people and sharing their stories. And it's just a passion for me.
I didn't know that your daughters raced. So that's pretty cool. So 16 and how old are they now?
18. So my granddaughters, my oldest
Okay.
daughter, Brandy, lives here in Kalamazoo, and her daughters race. They started racing about 7 years ago. They started in quarter midgets. So they were, maybe 8 and 10, or maybe younger than that. I'm not good at my math right at the moment. But anyway, McKenna just turned 18 in July. Maddie turned 16 in April. And McKenna's been racing what we call a big car. She started in a front wheel drive. So this is her 4th year of racing what we call a big car. She runs a template late model right now. Madison took a year or 2 off from racing between quarter midgets, but now she's back and she's racing a street stock. And so they race at Kalamazoo Speedway on Friday night and at Galesburg Speedway on Saturday night. Each track is about 20 minutes from me. So I'm spoiled. I get to go 2 nights a week and watch my granddaughters race, and it's a lot of fun.
And now, how did you get interested in racing in the first place? Did you grow up with it?
Well, no, I didn't. I grew up on a farm, and we didn't race anything, there in a small town in West Central Illinois. But when I got married to my first husband in the 1970s, he worked with a couple guys that raced at Quincy Raceways in Quincy, Illinois. And so we would start going, we'd go to the races a few times. Well, my son at the time was about probably 4 or 5 years old. And he was absolutely just couldn't get enough racing. He would bug us all day if he knew it was race day to go. So I bought him a little race outfit from JCPenney. I think it was a Halloween costume, actually. He would wear that little white race suit to the races, sit on the front row. And the only time you ever heard anything out of him was if he wanted something to eat or he had to go to the bathroom. while my daughter was back playing Barbies with the rest of the little girls, he was out front sitting on that bench. And so we followed racing for 4 or 5 years. And then as he got older and my oldest daughter got older, where they were playing softball and baseball and doing things in the summer, we kind of got away from racing. But my son Ben he really never got that out of his system. He always wanted to drive a race car. He drew pictures of race cars. He loved it. And so when he graduated from high school in 1996, yes, 1996, he graduated from high school. He took his graduation money and he bought a race car behind my back, and didn't go over very well. And he and his dad actually had pulled it into our big garage and had covered it with some tarps and put some stuff around it, so you didn't really know what was there, and I hadn't really paid attention. And then they pulled the race car out. Well, that was not a good day. And as he would tell you, I didn't speak to him for 2 weeks. Now, I don't believe that, but that's the story he always told. So, if you can't beat him, you got to join him. So I started going to the racetrack and watching him race at Macomb, Illinois. It was a little dirt track. And the very first night that he raced, my youngest daughter sat on my lap with her hands over her ears like this and cried when he came out onto the track. Well, that's exactly how I felt, only I didn't do it. But, he was driving, and the old guys were going to show this young kid how it was done. And so they ran him into the wall during that night. And instead of letting go of the steering wheel, he hung on to it and he broke his hand. Ooh. And so, so that was in 1996. And he raced on and off for several years. He had a very interesting and colorful life, which I won't go into now, but a lot of people know his story and know that he had a life that wasn't easy, and through choices that he made. And so years passed. We moved to Michigan. I got divorced, and he ended up moving up to Michigan, where we had all relocated to in 1999, and back to racing. And so he bought a front wheel drive car, and he ran some enduros, and then he started racing, and then he went up to sportsman. And so he got all of us back into racing. We go to the track to watch him. Then my daughter and her husband, Bob, would come to the track. And that, that's when those girls that race now were tiny babies. And it gets in your blood. I mean, anybody that loves motorsports knows if you start going to the track and you get involved with a team or a family member, there's no place else to be on a weekend than at the racetrack. And that's what we did. And so through racing and through my send out cards business, we sponsored some races, and just got to know all the people at these racetracks, and they became family. So in 2017, I had back surgery, and I couldn't do all the things I used to be able to do, traveling and a lot of the things that I used to do. And so I wanted to connect with other women in motorsports, went to Facebook. Again, there was no group, nothing. I started that. I started publishing the magazine, and I've been doing that since 2017. In 2018, my son passed away. He committed suicide. And so we went through all that. But I can tell you that when something tragic happens like that, the race family was the first one to reach out. And it's amazing to have those kind of people behind you and support you in anything like that. People that you don't even really know that well. And that's the thing I think makes motorsports different than other sports. My kids all played basketball. My son played baseball. My girls were cheerleaders. And, you have friendships, but it's nothing like the race family, nothing at all. And that's the thing when I interview women, the thing I hear most, what's your favorite part about racing? And I hear the people. It's 99% of the time the answer is the people. It's not going fast. It's not my beautiful car. It's not the trophies I win. It's the people. And so I'm in the right business because I love telling stories. And that's what I do in the magazine. And I've had people say, well, what famous people have you interviewed? You know, kind of cocky to me. And I'll say, probably nobody you've ever heard of, because most of the stories are about women who have a job, they have kids, they have all kinds of things going on in their life, and they still race a car, or they are the crew chief, or whatever they do. And the stories are great, and they don't have to be famous for the story to be great. And that's what I love about telling those stories. So that's what keeps me busy.
I love that, because, you know, first, the people who are in it, a lot of times it's part of the dream. You know, if they're behind the wheel of that car, and you are telling a success story, because, you know, nobody does anything, and I don't, men, women, whoever, you don't go from a desire to be successful to instantly becoming successful, and whatever your success looks like. I mean, and not everybody has to be in
Mm-hmm.
NASCAR or Formula One. Success is different for different people, but there will always be obstacles along the way. We're all busy people with, you know, lots of different demands. And so to be able to highlight those stories, because your stories, I do love them, because it tells a wider range of a view of people. And I know I've had a desire to do that. It's why I started my podcast, but then it was just too hard for me to keep up with. And now I do something a little bit different, but you know, I really respect that. And putting together a full magazine, because how many pages are in your digital magazine?
You know, it really varies. You know, in the off season, it's not quite as many. It seems like when racing kind of slows down, then people do other things. You know, it's holidays and Christmas and whatever. And then during the pandemic, to be honest, you would think that it would have been a good time because people weren't busy, but people were sour a little bit on racing because they weren't getting to do what they wanted to do. And they didn't feel like they had a story because, well, I can't race this year because my track's closed or whatever it might be. But this year I've been just bombarded. So it ranges anywhere from 30 pages to, you know, this last issue was a big one in July. I think it was like close to 48 pages. And so, you know, and then I just did a special edition I just put out. I was in Knoxville, Iowa last week, and had never been to Knoxville Raceway, on my bucket list. They said not to call it a bucket list. It's an adventure list. Okay. Somebody said to me, you're too young to have a bucket list. And I didn't think you were ever too, but anyway, so my adventure list was Knoxville Raceway. And then I also went to English Creek, which is where the kids, mostly kids, run the karts and that. And I got to stay with my friend Lori Cutter, and she has a beautiful Racers Retreat, it's called, in her new home. And it's wow, if anybody's going to Knoxville or whatever to race, that's where you need to stay. I felt like I was in a spa. It was amazing. But I went there and I took a lot of pictures, and I met some amazing kids and their moms. And so I just put a little, I think 10 or 12 page thing together yesterday that's available. And it's just from my road trip out there, and lots of pictures. And I just love sharing that kind of thing, because those little girls that are in that magazine, you know, may never get in a magazine anywhere else. And so, you know, that's what makes it fun. And they love seeing themselves in the magazine.
Well, let's talk about your website then. So tell us what your website is, and I'm going to scroll it across the screen, actually. Oh, okay. There it is.
Yep. IWMANation.com. So you can go there and become a member. We are membership based. I mean, nothing's free. Everything that you do, you know, costs money, whether I travel or have an event or put the magazine together. And so thankfully I have members that understand and support me. So there's yearly and there's lifetime memberships available. You can go on there and become a member. And then you have, yes, as Kate is, then you
I'm a lifetime member.
Have access to all the past issues. You have access to all the past issues of the magazines. And then we do put some different news items up. And, you know, it's mostly the place for members to go and check out the magazine that they can read. And then we also have preferred partners. So if you're a member with us, then our preferred partners that we have right now give discounts on their products, their services, and then we are constantly adding new preferred partners. So just check that out if you're a member. And I just love sharing all of that, and that's what keeps me busy pretty much every day, all day long. That's what I do.
Yeah. So do you want to give a shout out to any of your preferred partners?
Oh, sure. Now you're going to ask me that. I know, but I just went through that. So
while she's looking those up, I want to mention that Melinda just interviewed me for her podcast, Racing Girls Rock, and it'll probably come out in the next couple of days here. And we were talking about the racing trade show that I'm organizing for January. And so she's like, oh, who's going to be there? So I'm trying to recall like 30 names from memory. So I'm kind of putting her on the spot here, but it's kind of like turning back.
You're doing the same thing that I did to you. So yes. So I can tell you who some of my partners are.
Great.
Obviously, Send Out Cards. I've been a Send Out Cards affiliate for a long time, and that's how I stay in touch with my members. I send cards that have pictures of their race cars on them, and I send brownies and all kinds of little gifts to people. And when they get those in the mail, they're super surprised. Everybody that's in the magazine gets a card with pictures of their story actually on the card so they can save it. So Send Out Cards. Smile Media is he helps people with their brands. I have JS Coaching, which she's an amazing young gal that does coaching for all kinds of businesses. Motorsport TV is one of our partners. Igneous Gear, which these two women invented this flame resistant apparel for athletes, and with an emphasis on women. Women's shaped different than guys, and so they have this amazing product, and I can't even imagine how they came about figuring that out, but they're wonderful, and I really love what they're doing with their products. We have the NASCAR, Andretti, and Petty Racing experiences. So if you want to go to any of those, you get 10% off the lowest rate that they're offering. And I actually did the Richard Petty Racing experience, and it was awesome. I would just wish they would have let me drive, but they made me ride along. So anyway, you get 25% off all of the IWMA shirts and everything that we have to offer. And iRacing is one of our partners. Race Chick, she has clothing and, like race suits and hats and shoes and all those kinds of things. You get a discount there. And then Tort Clothing. My friend Elizabeth Bristella is a tire changer for NASCAR, and she came up with these pants that she designed because she works in the garage. Guys' pants with all the little holes for your pliers and all your tools, they don't fit her. So she came up with these pants that she designed for a women's figure. And then she has some t-shirts too, but the pants are amazing. And she gives a 30% discount to our members if you want to buy those pants. So, yeah. And then, like I said, we're working on new members all the time, new preferred partners. And we just love being able to share those products with our members. And so if anybody out there wants to be a preferred partner, would love to have you join us.
Great. And of course they can go to your website, and all of your contact information will be there. And so, where do you see going with IWMA Nation, and where do you see yourself and doing this, 5-10 years from now? Where do you see it growing to?
Well, the thing that I really was hoping would be growing to already, and the pandemic shut us down, was events. So last year we had about a dozen events scheduled at NASCAR tracks. And when I say an event, it was geared towards women, with an emphasis on inviting women's groups in the area. So let's just say Michigan, for example, inviting women's groups to come out and have an event at the track, and, encourage wives, girlfriends, etc., who think that the racing is just for their husband, their boyfriend. It's not. It's for all of us. There's so many things that women would enjoy about coming to a race if they just gave it a chance. So the event would look like this. They'd, buy a ticket to the event. They would get a meet and greet with a couple drivers' wives, maybe a driver, maybe my friend Liz would be on the panel. So we'd have a panel of people that, they would want to be introduced to, they'd like to hear from. And so they would be able to hear that panel discussion, meet and greet, pictures with those people, and then a tour of the infield, a little bit of history about that track, where it started and that kind of thing. And just each track is different. Each track's event looked a little different based on their facilities and that. But, the pandemic shut us down. So we are doing an event at Bristol this year on September 18th. Bristol Motor Speedway has a women's group there. And so we're going to do an event in conjunction with them. There'll be room for 100 women in a suite. And you're going to get goodie bags, and we're going to do all kinds of fun stuff. So if you're going to be at the race in Bristol, contact Bristol Motor Speedway, ask them about tickets for the women's event. And then I will have some tickets that I'm going to be giving away here soon. So that's kind of where we are. So down the road, I'd love to be doing events at NHRA races, at Indy races, at NASCAR races, at, I just did the trophies for Kalamazoo Speedway. That's what I really want to do. I want to meet the women. I want them to see that motorsports is for everyone. And I want them to invite women out to the track who haven't been there before. Get those new fans to the track.
Well, I think it's super exciting because I know when I talk to an audience that's outside of like the racing group and I say that I'm in racing, I mean, I think there is an entire like, I didn't know she was that redneck, basically. They don't really know what to expect. And like for you offering this basically, it's like the champagne and chocolates version of the racing experience, and getting this VIP look in. And that's the part people don't see. You just kind of see what's on TV, but when you get that inside experience, it really does change your perspective of NASCAR. I don't know. I probably didn't tell you this. Like my very first NASCAR race, my dad was working for a NASCAR team, a Busch team, Morgan Shepherd. And so my very first weekend in North Carolina, I just moved here, and it was Charlotte Motor Speedway. And I'm on top of a pit cart in the infield counting laps. So that's an entirely different experience than like being in the stands and just not really knowing what's going on. I still get confused. I go to races, and especially when there starts being lap cars, of course, I go to a lot more dirt races than I do the NASCAR races. I do love NHRA. But as soon as they start hitting lap cars, I don't even know who's leading anymore. And it's so frustrating sometimes, but we've got tools for that now, like Race Monitor or My Race Pass. We've got tools for that now. Right. We know who's leading. But I love what you're doing with giving that behind the scenes experience. I was just in Bristol this year doing when they put dirt on the track, and I set up a booth up there. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. The pandemic was really, I don't think any of us knew. I mean, nobody knew what was going to be next. And I know it was really scary for racing for a little while there, but I'm hoping we picked up some new fans, because I think it was like the one entertaining thing you could do for like a year. It's sad.
That's so true. And it made me so proud to see, iRacing came up and stepped up, and we saw some of that, and it kept the interest going, to see a national network pick that up and even broadcast it. And we were the only thing out there. There was nothing else. There was no fan. There was no baseball at the time and different things. And so, I knew that my events would happen at some point. They delayed us a year, but I've got so many fun things I want to do. And 2022 is probably going to be the year of the majority of the events, because, they just opened us up, maybe 6 weeks ago, 100% or so. And it takes time to plan an event, and especially at a NASCAR track. So I'm working on 2022 and NHRA and anywhere that they would want me to come. The IWMA Road Tour is all about it. We'll be there.
Well, that's great. I know because I know you're traveling. You've got a couple of home bases there between Arizona and
Yeah.
Michigan. There, otherwise you're mobile. I think you've got
Yeah.
a new IWMA Nation vehicle, the like a Road
Yeah.
Warrior vehicle. Tell us about your experience there.
Well, so I bought a truck. I sold my Lincoln, and I bought a 2019 Dodge Ram Rebel, and it's amazing. I absolutely love it. And when my husband's driving, and we get a lot of comments on it because it's got a wrap on it for IWMA, but they'll be like, "Oh, nice truck," and he'll say, "Oh, it's my wife's truck," and it really is my truck. He has a different car, but you get a lot of notice when it has the wrap down the side, and people will stop you and say, "Hey, what's that?" Because the checkered flags are the first thing to give it away. And I've shared a lot about racing and what I do and things just from driving that truck wherever I happen to be. So that's been kind of fun. And then we bought that truck because we had a 28-foot travel trailer that we took to Arizona in the fall. And after being in it a couple months, my husband decided it wasn't big enough. And he was never the one that was interested in camping, let me tell you, first off, or RVing. He called it a box on wheels. But after being in Arizona for a couple of months, and he could go to play pool every day, and we could go up to the swimming pool every day, and we could find lots of fun things to do, he kind of changed his mind, decided maybe we needed a bigger place to stay. And so we traded that for a 42-foot Class A that you drive. And we sold our house in last December. So as I was telling you earlier, I'm kind of homeless. I'm working at building a different place here in Michigan. But in the meantime, I'm staying at my friend's place, and I got a motor home. And, I'm just, every day is an adventure at some point.
Well, yeah, and you were like, all you have to do is grab the keys and you're on your next adventure. So you've got to love the
Yeah.
mobility of having the motorhome right there and like,
Oh,
ooh,
yeah.
event, okay, let's go. And you're already all
Yeah.
covered on all of your travel. So that's really exciting.
Absolutely.
I thought that was really an exciting part of your story and part of your
Yeah.
adventure and really being prepared for what's next. So yeah, and
Uh-huh.
now I know that following this podcast or following this interview, that this is about the last interview you're doing because you have plans for this weekend. So tell us about what you're doing this weekend.
I do. So you know how it happens. Nothing's planned, and then everything happens all at once. And
Yeah.
so last week I went to Iowa. I was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Came home Sunday, and then tomorrow Mark and I are flying to Nashville. There's Women with Drive, I believe it is. I always say it wrong. Women with Drive are putting on a fabulous event on Friday. They're going to have a panel of speakers, and I know it's sold out. I'm not sure how many tickets they had, but lots of networking for women in motorsports. I'm so excited about that. Have interviewed a lot of these women, but have never met them in person. So that's going to be so fun. And then we're going to the Indy race on Sunday. So that's part of the whole weekend. And I've not been to an Indy race before. My husband has not either. So he's tagging along on this trip. And we're going to watch the Indy race through the streets of Nashville, across the bridge and back. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So we're doing that. We're coming home on Monday. Tuesday, I leave to go back to Iowa because it's the Knoxville Nationals, and the English Creek is having their nationals. So some of the drivers at English Creek are going to be Braxton Bush, Kyle Busch's son, Wyatt Miller, which is Kelly Earnhardt Miller's son, and some others. So when I was there, a weekend or two ago, I actually got to meet Kelly Earnhardt Miller, and she's been someone that I've looked up to and admired for, telling her story, being so honest about things that, life wasn't great, all the time. And you think you put those people on a pedestal, and then you realize they did go through some hard times.
Mm-hmm.
I've read her book a couple of times, amazing book. And so I was so excited to get to meet her. And she reached out to me this last week after meeting her, which just made my day. And so I'm going back to English Creek on Tuesday, the 11th, I believe it is. And then I'll be at Knoxville Raceway the 12th and 13th. And my friend Lori and I were asked to put on a women's forum during the Knoxville Nationals. So on Thursday, the 12th at noon at the Sprint Car Hall of Fame building, she and I have a panel of, I think, 8 women that are going to be talking to the first 50 that show up. The room only holds 50. So we're going to have those women share about what they do. They're from all walks of life in motorsports. And everybody's going to get a little gift bag from the IWMA and from Lori. And it's going to be fun to meet in person again. More of these women that are just passionate about motorsports, whether it be themselves, their family, whatever it is, we're going to get them together and have a good time.
Well, I think this is so exciting because I actually did not know that there were all these events going on. I did not know that there were so many women really involved in motorsports. They get exposed like little bits here and there, but to hear about these major collaborations, I really love what you've been putting together. Now, can a person see all of these events and things? Are they available on your website or just on your Facebook page, or where can someone find out about some of the events that you're involved in?
Well, I typically share a lot on my Facebook page. So when I first saw about the event in Nashville, I shared it to my Facebook page and where it was, how to find out more about it. And so I'm more at connecting people. So I shared that quite a bit, actually. And then I had a big spread in the magazine this month telling all about it, who's going to be there and how to register and everything. And then the Knoxville Nationals one, same thing. I've been sharing it through Facebook, and I just did that little special segment about my road trip. I think it was like 12 pages or so. And so there's a thing in there about the schedule for the Knoxville National events, and it tells in there, what we're going to be doing. And so I'm not as good about putting it on the website as I am about sharing it on social media. So I'm better at sharing it on my Facebook page.
Hey, just as long as you're putting it out there, it's hard to be in all the places at one time. Believe me, I get that for sure. Right. Now, it is interesting to me to hear about all of these women that are involved in motorsports in so many different aspects and ways. If somebody's looking at getting involved in motorsports, what advice would you have to give them?
I would say that you will not be sorry if you get involved. And I don't care how you get involved. Maybe you just want to become a fan. Then go to the track, support your local track, because those tracks need every fan that they can to get there. And then, if you've been a fan for a while, but you've never gone to the pit area prior to a race, ask your favorite driver if you can come and just observe or be in the pits with them for a race. I doubt that anybody would tell you no. Go into the pits. And I don't mean at 7:00 when the races start at 7:30. I mean, you get there at noon when the team gets there. You go through everything that they do to get ready to get that car on the track. Because as a fan, you show up and the races start, you enjoy it, you go home. But you don't realize that they've been there for hours, getting their tires ready, practicing, qualifying, doing all the things they do. They're eating hot dogs, or maybe they're not eating at all. It's hard to say. All the things they have to do to get that car ready. And, go with them when they have to go buy the tires, and it's $500 for a set of tires. That's an eye-opening experience for people. You take 4 or 5 people with you to right. Oh, yeah. And then the fuel. And then maybe you take 3 or 4 people with you that help you. You pay their pit passes. Those are $30 a piece. You're talking several hundred, if not $1,000 for a small short track race on a Friday night. And people do not understand what it costs and the work that's involved. And then, maybe your car gets bunged up. And so you spend the whole week fixing the car. I mean, if you want to be in motorsports, you've got to be committed. And I just challenge people to go to the pits once and check it out, because you will be you will admire the teams that come week after week after week, and especially those teams that don't win. You know, they just keep coming back, and you just got to say, good for you. You know, you're keeping the sport alive. And then, you know, in motorsports, you can look as far up, you know, as Joe Gibbs Racing or the big race teams. There's a lot of women that are involved in those teams behind the scenes. Maybe they're doing all the travel arrangements. Maybe they're doing photography, social media, whatever it might be. Maybe they're the business manager. They're in accounting. There's all kinds of ways to be involved in motorsports without being the driver. And that's one of the things that I try to, expose, especially younger girls to, because the younger ones, everything is, I want to be the next NASCAR driver. I love that that's what they want to do. But you and I both know, to get there and actually be that person, the finances have to be there. The talent has to be there. You have to be the whole package. You have to have a good presence. You have to have a good character and all those things. And so the chances of all those girls that I've talked to being in NASCAR, I just know is not going to happen. But could they be involved by being the social media person? Could they be the PR person for Kyle Larson? Wouldn't that be a fun job? There's all kinds of things they could do. Yeah. So I try to, when I, interview women and interview a variety of women that are involved in motorsports, not just drivers, because I want to expose people to the bigger picture of what they could do if they wanted to stay in that field in some way or another.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. And it's such a big ecosystem. It's small in the greater scheme of things, but we are this whole ecosystem, and there are women involved in so many aspects that are just not as visible, but it's okay. Right. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. More visible now than even 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, it's just increasing all the time, the women that are taking leadership roles. And I'm just ready and waiting for that first crew chief. I can't wait to see who that's going to be, the first woman crew chief in a Cup Series. So that'll be fun.
That will be fun. That will be fun to see for sure. Great. Yeah. Are there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
I really just encourage you, if you haven't been to a track, make sure you get there, find a track close by, go to a NASCAR race, go to NHR race, Indy race, whatever it might be. It's nothing like watching on television. You need to experience it. So I encourage people to give it a try. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But at least you said you tried. And I'd be hard pressed to think you wouldn't love it after you've been there at least once. So go out and support your local tracks and get involved and follow the IWMA. We're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and follow us. And if you have any suggestions of women that that would be a good podcast interview or a good story in the magazine, I'm always looking for interesting women to interview. So.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to all of you who are watching. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. I certainly appreciate it. And I will be back in another video. You never know what I'm going to be doing. So see you soon.
Thank you, Kate.